said, my name's Jenai Hales, and I am a residential and commercial realtor in the area. I do very high volume, my journey with ovarian cancer was certainly a very pivotal moment in my life, to say the least. Prior to getting cancer, as she mentioned, I was a competitive bodybuilder. I have always taken good care of myself. Always running with six-pack, very low body fat, eating clean, hardly drinking, no drugs. Cancer doesn't run in my family, so I'm sure you all would be amazed that I was shocked when I got cancer. But in many ways, it actually was one of the best things that happened to me. So with every bad thing that happens, there's always some good, I would have to say. My journey began March 13th, 2018. I owned a business downtown, and I remember it like yesterday. I got a horrific pain in my lower left abdomen. And when I say horrific, on a scale of 1 to 10, it was probably a 12. And it was so painful that I vomited. And I knew that something serious was wrong because I knew it wasn't food poisoning. I hadn't eaten. The pain was that intense. So I left my store, went home, got in the elevator, vomited again. Then when I got up to my apartment, I vomited again, and I was on the verge of fainting. And I called my daughter and I said to her, I'm going to urgent care. There's something seriously wrong with me. And I went to urgent care. And here's where I will say, I can be very assertive when I need to be. Some might call it not very nice, but I do what I need to do to get things done at times. And I will also say my medical background. I was pre-med in school. I was accepted to medical school. I ended up declining. While I was waiting to get accepted though, I did research. I wanted to do an MD PhD. So I did diabetes research and TB research. So I had some knowledge of how the body works. And so I went to the doctor, and he insisted I was constipated. And I told him, I looked him in the eye and I said, I'm not constipated, I promise you, I would know if I was constipated. And he said, okay, well, I really think you're constipated. And I said, look, do some test. Let's do a pap smear, do something. And he did a pelvic exam and he goes, nope, nothing. So I looked at him and I said, give me an effing test. I don't care what it is. Send me somewhere and get me another test because there's something seriously wrong with me. And he said, okay, I'll get you an ultrasound. Well, he ordered an ultrasound of my abdomen, and I will say, instead of my pelvic area, despite the fact I told him, this is a female problem. I promise you this is a female problem. Thank goodness my tumors were extremely large. So I got the call the next day. You have a 13 centimeter mass in your abdomen. And he still insisted on not listening to me. He wanted me to go to a GI doctor. And I said, this is likely a cyst on my ovary. I'm going to a gynecologist, and I hung up on him. So that was the beginning of the crazy journey. It gets even crazier. So my first appointment with a doctor, a gynecologist, we have no idea if I have cancer at this point in time. And he insists that I need to get a hysterectomy. He does, he's feeling my abdomen and he says, yeah, you probably have cysts and I'm gonna recommend a hysterectomy. And I said, well, I'm 51 right now. I would like to keep my ovaries if I can. I know there's other procedures these days. If I can spare my organs, I certainly want to spare them. Obviously, if I have cancer, I'm going to do whatever's necessary. But I want to spare my ovaries because they produce estrogen, testosterone, all these important things that we need to stay healthy. And he looked at me and he said, you know, you're 51, you don't need your ovaries anymore. And I looked at him and I said, well, you know what? My ovaries, they're kind of like your balls. You kind of like to keep them, wouldn't you? And he looked at me, and I said it that way on purpose. And he looked at me and he said, my testicles are different. And I said, no, they're not. They function the same. A woman's ovaries function to produce hormones, and so do the male's testicles. That's what they're there for, biological function. And he looked at me and he said, well, I was going to pass you to somebody else. And I said, good, because I don't think this is a good fit. So the next doctor didn't even take me. They asked me my age. And obviously I told them my age, and then they said, you're 51, we don't feel if you need to spare your organs. So I kept on this chase of finding a good doctor, and I finally found one in San Antonio. So I went to Texas Oncology in San Antonio, and Dr. Antonio Santiago Gomez, the most amazing surgeon out there. He was an OBGYN oncologist. And we did the blood test, I believe it's a CA-125, 3 times, showed no cancer. And going into surgery, when he prepped me, I thought, okay, I'm good, 3 times. And he looked at me, he says, this thing is wrong 50% of the time. And I thought, why are we doing this? We might as well flip a quarter. It's gonna give us the same statistical outcome. So he said, if you have cancer, the surgery is gonna run anywhere from 4, we don't know if you have cancer, it's gonna run anywhere from 4 to 14 hours. And that's when it really hit me what was going on. And I said, how in the world would we need 14 hours? And he said, because if you have cancer, ovarian cancer tends to spread fast. I might be rerouting your intestines. And I was like, oh my God. So I remember the minute I woke up from surgery, the first thing I asked my daughter, I felt my abdomen, I asked her, how long was I in surgery? And she said, 4 hours. And I thought, I made it, all right, good, no cancer. Then he came in and he said, well, we've removed your ovaries, your uterus, your lymph nodes, your appendix, and your omentum. And I thought, holy hell. I was stunned, and he said, you had cancer in both your ovaries. And I said, well, what about the other areas? He said, we have to do a biopsy still. We'll know in 3 weeks. You can imagine what I did for 3 weeks. Google MD, Google, whatever. And all I read was, you know, if you're stage 3, stage 4 ovarian cancer, maybe 5-year life expectancy, it's not a very good outcome. I actually prepared for my death because I owned businesses, properties, and I thought my daughter's not gonna know how to navigate this. She's an adult, but who wants to have to mess with that? So I put my business up for sale, and I started to plan to wind things down, thinking this is not gonna work out very well. I go in for my 3-week checkup, and I didn't have cancer anywhere else, and I was only stage 1. No chemo. I didn't have to do 1 bit of chemo. That was probably one of the, I mean, talk about waiting to hear the news. And he kept going through the slides very slow. No cancer found here. No cancer found here. It was the longest meeting I've ever had with anybody. But that was my outcome. No chemo. I still to this day cannot believe it. And I decided at that moment, I said, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and sell my business because I don't really like doing this. And I sold my business. I took an epic trip. We went to Venice, Croatia, Slovenia. And I came back and I got my license in real estate because I've always owned investment properties, and I've been living the best life ever. What cancer did for me was, I noticed when I was sick that I had PTSD from being almost raped and murdered many years ago. And that was a very challenging time for me, those 20 years. I noticed when I got cancer, oh my goodness, I have PTSD again, all that fear of dying. So I finally said to myself, you know what? God gave me this opportunity to live. And if I'm going to live on this earth, I am not doing it with all this baggage. So I got really good therapy and worked out a lot of my PTSD. And I no longer have all that fear that I used to have. And so if I wouldn't have got the cancer, I don't know if I would have been so dead set on doing that. But it made me do that because I felt so blessed. I thought, why should I be on this earth and have all this baggage with me? I wanted my last years to be the best that there are. And that's what I've done. And that is the life I have now. I have never had a better life. I will say, in hindsight, I really believe that PTSD or stress is a big factor in illness and cancers. Even Gabor Mate, who's a famous author, they recently published, he was talking about a study where ovarian cancer and PTSD is strongly linked. So manage your stress. I will say that, manage your stress, because it will get the best of you at some point in time, but I no longer have that stress. So that's my journey.